Boss mic trigger.
Hi guys, today's video is going to be about a communal enterprise and just what is a communal enterprise and what it isn't. And bear in mind, these are my thoughts. This is not a guide. Obviously, for those who are wanting a manual, go seek a careers help advisor, but hopefully this should, there should be some guidelines in this video to help you to make the best of a communal enterprise, or get a communal enterprise, or grow it. So, and bear in mind, when I talk about communal enterprises, I will tell you one of the things to watch out for right at the beginning. So, I think I'll just say what a communal enterprise is and what it isn't. First of all, then I'll talk about the things to watch out for. So, a communal enterprise is a company. You've got to be careful with these words. It is a company, but it is not a business. Let's get into that term. It's not a business. However, you can run it like a business. But you have to remember, you are running your service for the community. So if you are a community, you're not a business. That's something you need to remember. However, you can be business and a community. It's very, very difficult to do, but you have to juggle the two pretty well. And you have to be like main leader. Don't forget, people that run these communal enterprises, you're on the stage. Your audience is working for you. You have to remember this. Your audience is working for you, as well as buying from you and providing and everything like that. And when you have to provide for them, just remember the people you're working for and you're providing for is already your audience. So that's something to remember. Maybe if you're thinking about doing a communal enterprise, maybe start small. They don't tell you these things in career guidance because they want you to be big thinkers. They want you to be not get rich quick, but big thinkers. They want you to explode out there into the world. That's their way of thinking, which is okay, but it's not. You're not going to get the meat and potato from them. You will get what a communal enterprise is, which is a business that runs for the community. However, I differ from that, because if you are going to be a business, then be something really small. What can you do? What can you repair? And remember that, especially in this time and day, you could be a work from home person and have that as a communal enterprise. You could be an educator.
One
you could
notification.
be
Screen time. Now. Weekly report of a...
Yeah, you could be an educator. You could be a therapist. You could be anything. But check what skills that you would need to have that job before going and doing it. But, photographer is a good one. There's a lot of photographers in the community, but could you do something different? What services could you provide? we have millions of wedding photographers. But do we have millions of other photographers? Photography is a big one. And there is so many niches within it. Podcaster is another. These little things, that you could do in order to make these things happen. Now, the reason I talk about all this, by the way, is because people need to have that education.
Screen time. 1 minute ago. Weekly report available. Your screen time was down 20%. Audio recording in progress.
So yeah, that's one of the big things. So what isn't then? What is a communal enterprise? It is an enterprise, but it's not a business. It's not a business in the sense the way you think. Yes, you can make money from it, but it depends in the way what you're going to do. Are you going to pay 1 or 2 volunteers? And be careful. The paid voluntary route is a very grey area. It's not a borderline, it is a grey area. There's a lot of people thinking, it's a borderline issue. It is not. It is not. Paid voluntary, if there is a volunteer that's getting paid, right, do not say that they're a volunteer. Please don't. And tell them not to say they're a volunteer. Yes, they're on a voluntary contract, but if they're on, everybody starts to know their business then, especially if they're on benefits, which we all know you can work up to 7 or 8 hours, whatever. If if they're working in the legal limit, if you're doing everything legal and above board, then there's nothing for anybody else to suggest. You can say they are a paid volunteer if you want. They can say they're a paid volunteer if you want. But what the problem you want to stay clear of is bringing politics in. If you want to stay clear of politics, you do not say you have any paid volunteers. You say you have volunteers, and if you're paying somebody, you say they are a paid person. They don't even say they're a volunteer. Yes, they're on the voluntary roll, on the contract. You've got a contract for them to sign. It's all on paper and it's all above board. Nobody else needs to know anybody else's business. Because if you have a shop, for example, I need to take a shop, or you've got somewhere where you've got an office, you then start having things, you then start to have a little bit of, you start to have things that a bit of drama starts crawling in, really, stuff you don't really want to happen. A lot of politics starts crawling in too. You will have politics, but you won't have the right politics. You don't want the wrong politics. You don't want to have, why am I not getting paid? I should be paid this amount. I want this amount of money. I'm a volunteer too. Don't I get those rights? Which, yes, they are volunteers too, but they've already signed a piece of paper saying they'll be a volunteer and they won't be getting paid anything at all. But this person that's getting paid, they're the ones.
Messenger.
That's,
now, Jennifer Hale. To your good morning, Julie.
They're the ones that's providing all of the all of the
Mic lock button is on. Finish recording button.
They're the ones that are providing stuff like tea and coffee, sugar, making sure so and so's got his lunch down there or whatever. making sure it's, you know, so they do provide a lot. The people that get paid, they do get paid a lot. Well, not get paid a lot, but they have to provide a lot. Sorry, that's the words I'm looking for. So they don't, you know, it's a thing when you pay a volunteer. Anybody, when you pay a volunteer, it's a grey area. Because it's happened in a couple of places where I've been, and they've said, oh, this volunteer is getting paid. This volunteer is getting paid. When you say words like that, it's like, well, why am I not getting paid? I'm here. What luxuries do I get? None. You know, you're just a volunteer. And I need to stress something here as well. When you pay somebody, you know, you don't have to say that person's getting paid, because obviously you don't have to stress, but obviously when everybody does cotton on, I mean, okay, you say, right, this person's getting paid. These people are getting paid. In these big mainstream charities where they have a lot of administrative costs, you have to know who's getting paid in that, because you're thinking, well, where's my money coming from? But in a voluntary organisation, the people that are getting paid for the right reasons. And they have to, legally, by law, take so much money to pay for the volunteers. The person that's getting paid, it'll say in their contract, they must cater for other volunteers coming in. So, Mr. Little Volunteer that's getting nothing, well, what about your free pack of biscuits, or your free cup of coffee, or your free sandwich? Where's that coming from? It's not coming from thin air, is it? Now, I have to stress this. Now, the thing is, you know, the problem with paid volunteers is they like to be a bit big-headed. So as a good boss, as a good leader, you tell them you are not a paid volunteer, you are paid. A volunteer in my book is somebody who does not get paid at all, one iota. They don't get anything. You know, they might get a high street voucher if they're lucky. You know, they might get a internet voucher or something if they're lucky. If the person wants to do that. If not, then unfortunately that person doesn't get anything at all. Which is why volunteering is what it is. But I'll come to that in another video, because there are issues with volunteering, just as there is issues with paid. And people don't talk about these issues, but I guess they need to, because a lot of people will be thinking, oh, if I went into a paid role, that'd be better, or if I went into a volunteering role, that'd be better. But anyway, paid volunteers, they're not volunteers, they're paid workers. Stop calling them paid volunteers. There is paid voluntary, but it's, you know, you're rather giving them things like high street vouchers, or paying for them, like paying for their travel, you know, that I see that as paid voluntary, because they're not paying you directly, they're paying for your transport. So, you know, if you have to get a taxi to go to the job, if they're paying the transport straight, you know, the money goes straight into the people driving you from A to B, then the money's going That's paid voluntary in my book. Paid voluntary is not, we give you 50, 60 quid or more at the end of the week, that goes into your account, blah, 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 all the rest of it. But you can see where I'm going with this. Because that starts to that starts to bring a lot of politics in. Who's getting paid? Why am I not getting paid? They're getting paid more than me. I'm getting paid nothing. And yet you're telling me what to do. And that comes on another thing as well, with volunteers. You want to watch out for volunteers who think they're above you. And you could be at the top. You could be running the ship, as it's called. And you get the odd volunteer who's at the bottom, who's, especially with voluntary shopkeepers, don't get me started on them. But you get them, and just because they've got a little job, becomes a big job, in fact, to them, they start thinking that they can run the whole show when really they can't run the whole show. If it's paid communal enterprise, you still don't want lower people running the shot. And this happens in CICs. I see it all the time. I've seen a few communal enterprises, and the little secretary or the little shopkeeper or the organisers or whatever, whoever's been just given a small task, a medium task, they'll think that it's a mammoth task, and they'll think that they can take over and run the whole thing, and that's not the way at all. And again, you've got to be wary of that, because that brings a lot of politics in. With voluntary, you get a volunteer who's pushing other volunteers around. They don't like that, and neither will you. If you're running something, you will not like that at all. And if they're pushing you around as well, guess what? You ain't gonna like it. It's like, hold on, who's steering things here? Who's steering things? However, don't get rid of them. So again, it's another video to talk about little Hitler volunteers, but I thought I'd talk about it in this video because it is important, and if it's going to be one where you get a lot of volunteers, and obviously they, they're all, the volunteers come in or whatever, or the paid. I've seen it in paid communal enterprises, where the little secretary behind the desk, who doesn't run the shop, thinks that she runs everything, thinks she can push you around and tell you what to do. And that, to me, it says things. It spoils things for me, I think. Because they do a lot of work. Secretaries do a lot of work. Shopkeepers do a lot of work. But what they don't do is they don't direct things. They're not the ones steering the ship. You may have somebody in your company who holds the map, but nobody else can. They're just a backseat driver in the company. They're just in the background. And you don't want somebody in the background running your company or running your whatever you want them to run, because it just doesn't work like that at all. Yes, they may be able to do things better than you can, but there are things that they can't do, and that's when things go, that's when things turn to rubbish. Even, I tell you what, I saw it in another communal enterprise as well, which just shut the whole community. And that's another thing as well. These little Hitlers, these little people who think they can take things over, they can wreck a whole enterprise if you're not careful. So yeah, you are to watch out for these people, but do not get rid of them so quickly. So it is another video in itself, but I think something just to mention on. So, I mean, these are really big things. Those two things that I've talked about. So paid voluntary, little hitters. Another thing as well is what you do with your company is yours. You've got to remember this. So when you do something outside of your company, whatever you do, if that comes big news and that gets in, that could still create a lot of politics. And I just thought I'd mention that because I've only seen it in one communal enterprise. But I thought I'd mention it because if it's your money and you are doing what you want with your money and you are the boss and you are the man at the top, okay, as long as you haven't taken too much money out of the company, then nobody should really be questioning it. Nobody at all has the right to question it. At all. Because it brings a lot of politics in. It brings politics you don't really want in. It brings a lot of drama you don't want in. Brings the, it's fuel for the gossipers. You really don't want to give the gossipers any fuel at all. So it's worse than paid voluntary. Yeah. Worse than paid voluntary. And that's the thing that I think needs to be said, really. But communal enterprises, they're still new. And people still don't really understand what they are. Because they're not charities, even though some do work for charities. And some do work for the companies and stuff like that. What they don't do is say they're a charity or advertise they're a charity. You might think they're a charity from the outside because they're not a big company. A lot of small companies get treated like charities at the moment, but they're not. Just because they're not tied to something isn't going to mean that they're, huge companies. And I know a lot of companies, a lot of small independent companies getting a lot of they're given a little bit of slack now, but it's just one of the things. You go into a small company, you immediately think, oh, they're a charity here, but they're not. So I think I've covered the big things, really. What it's not. And you may think, paid voluntary, that's a big thing, or paid volunteers, that's a big thing. But it's one of those things as well. And just one more thing. Don't be afraid of crowdfunding projects. I know a lot of people are afraid of them because basically crowdfunding is a begging letter. But what you've got to realise is, if it's done well, people will throw money at you. So if you do something good, people will give you money for it. You'll be surprised at what crowdfunding projects do. And think of what you need. If you're a shop, if you need something, crowdfunding project. Think of something quirky that you need the money for, and by Jove, people will back you for it and everything. You look at Dragon's Den. That's one example of crowdfunding, but a lot of people are scared of it because they think, oh, we're begging for money that we don't need. Well, yes, you're begging for money that you don't need, but you'll actually find that you do need it, and you do need people. That's the thing you need. You need people. You're a community, so you need people. That's a very important thing to. That's a very important thing to talk about. And these are the things that people won't talk about. A lot of these careers guidance, they'll give you a basic definition of what a communal enterprise is. What they won't tell you is what it isn't, and what they won't tell you is how it works and how it functions properly, how it functions from underneath. Because yes, a communal enterprise is what it is. It is a business that you make. That it's a business that's run by the community. Yes, that's the basic definition. What it isn't, though, it's not a business. A business is where you take the money for yourself, most of it, and none of the money goes back to your audience. There you go. That's a business. That's how a business works. Obviously, you have to pay the bills, so you don't take all the money, but most of it you can put in your back pocket. At the end of the day, the money goes in your pocket. With a communal enterprise, not all of the money's yours. Maybe half of it's yours. And if you're paying volunteers, which are not paid volunteers, as I said before, if you're paying them, then seriously, the money definitely ain't yours, because half of that's the person that you're paying. If you've got 200 quid in your back pocket, then half of that ain't yours. I'm sorry, but that's how it works. And that's what they won't tell you about communal enterprises. A lot of people think, oh, I'll go down the communal enterprise route because it's a good one to go down, and I can get a lot of people, excuse me, and get a few people invested in my project and stuff, which is good. But think, do I want to be a small independent company, or do I want to be a communal enterprise? Now, I'm not saying a communal enterprise can be a business. I'm not saying that. What I'm telling you here is giving you the definition, what it is and what it isn't. Yes, you can be a communal enterprise. You can take the money and do all that stuff. It can be yours. You can provide in a certain way, but you have to know where you want to steer the helm. But if you are a community, you're not a business. And the money ain't yours, my friend. The money you get, obviously you need the money to pay the bills and stuff. But the rest of it ain't yours. You've got to pay for things, you've got to buy things for the community. And pay for the people who are working for you, or pay the odd bloody volunteer who shouldn't really be paid, but you're paying them. And by the way, this is not a dig on paid volunteers, but this is a kind of what I've experienced, because I don't really understand how, about money properly. But what I am going to say, that paid voluntary is a grey area. It really is. And you must understand that it's a grey area. I've seen it in quite a few things. I've seen the politics that comes out of that. Oh, they're a paid volunteer, are they? Oh, where's my money? Why am I getting it? Why am I, what's the problem? Such a body's, you're paying them. Why aren't you paying me? Why aren't you giving me something? Okay, I'm volunteering for you, but, you're doing more for them than you'd ever do for me. And it happens. And you still have rights to volunteer, to argue certain things, Where's my, that person you're paying, why aren't they supporting me? Why aren't they at home throwing sickies all the time? They shouldn't be throwing sickies, they should be here supporting me. This is the stuff that's happened, and this is the stuff that gets me really angry, unfortunately, but it does, and it's a grey area. It really is. And you're thinking, oh, well, it's not a grey area. They can be a paid volunteer and I can just do whatever. Right, yeah, well, keep them as a paid volunteer. But remember, the rest of the volunteers in your company have rights. So, yeah, this should be educational. And I just thought that I would talk about it because I found a video talking about the Make It workshop. And I thought I've not spoken about the really educational stuff about communal enterprises. People have been asking for a while. Maybe you've gone to a careers guide. And, I'm not stopping you from going to them because they're really good people to go to. Pathways advisors and stuff, because they know more about things. However, they'll give you basic definitions when it comes to communal enterprises. They won't give you the stuff that's under the hood, because communities should be run as communities. They're a group of people. That's what a community is. A group of people who get together. Yes, there's a shop out there that's pretty quirky, or there's a place, you go to there. And if you turn that shop into a resource centre, just think of all the things you could do. All the things. In fact, I've heard of a few places where people have gone in and they've needed something, and you said, here, we've got this, and all of a sudden that's really helped that person. You never thought that it would help them, but it has. Anyway, that's it for this video, unfortunately. I hope this has helped. I know I've gone into corners that probably no one will ever go, but there you have it.